Welcome to the Life Writing Podcast. We're married authors and screenwriters Stephen Barnes.
And Tananarive do talk about writing during stressful times, breaking into Hollywood, and balancing life.
Every weekish, we'll share more tips on how to build a better life while you create your dream projects.
Even if it's only at the rate of one sentence a day, life writing is the application of the tools of writing to life and the tools of life to your writing.
There we go. Hey, everybody. Oh, finally. What happened? Wake up, guys.
There we go.
They were so eager for the show to start, and then when it was their moment,
did they
crickets.
not love us anymore? What's going on?
So hey, audience, guess what? It is a week after our previous podcast. I'll have you know, we are capable of doing a weekly podcast. And we always like to start with a little segment called What's Going On? Okay, so much is going on. So freaking much. I mean, I don't even know where to begin, but the thing I'm most excited about is, well, first of all, let me announce that we have an amazing guest coming up right after this segment, director Josh Ruben, who directed the new Valentine's Day horror comedy
My
romance out
my
in
new
theaters
all-time favorite Valentine's horror film.
right now. Yeah, he'll be out soon. Yes, he'll be out. Calm down. He's coming later, though. Just calm down. So for now, and this kind of relates to Josh, because Steve and I, as we've probably mentioned ad nauseum, will be directing our first short film this summer. And we cast out a wide net among people kind of even peripherally in our circle for advice and guidance. And Josh is one of those people who just really stepped up in terms of advice and this is what you need to do and this is when you need to do it and how you need to do it. And we had our first meeting with our executives since the Christmas break because a lot's been going on. January was pretty much a lost month, I think, to a lot of people in Hollywood, but we had our first meeting just a few days ago and it felt so good. I felt like I knew what I was talking about. I was able to share the vision for the film in a language they understood. So I'm just super psyched. I feel like, oh my God, I really am being a director. And
You know
that,
what?
yeah,
I'll be honest. I've said this to you before, but I consider that directors can often write. A lot of directors can write, and but not every writer can direct. I think that it's a superset of those skills to be able to see a story from the inside out and also see how would you bring this story into the world. In some ways, to be able to think about the audience at the same time you're thinking about the production, at the same time you're thinking about the actors. It's in some ways a superset of those skills. So I'm looking forward to this process because I know I'm going to learn. When I listen to James Cameron or Ronnie Howard or somebody talking about directing, in many ways they're talking about writing. How do you create
storytelling.
the emotional change in people? With a writer, you have a tool called language, words. With film, in language is one word following another word. With film, there can be a dozen things happening on the screen at the same time. So there is an impact, a cavalcade of sounds and movements and images that all can hit, and the timing on which you do those things. We were talking about the fact that every word, every image has to trigger an emotion, ultimately choreographing an emotional cascade that leads to some emotional epiphany, something that you want people to feel when they walk out of the theater.
You're using a lot of big words, honey. Cavalcade, did you say? I'm sorry.
I got that on television. It was like the cavalcade of hits.
No, but
So
you're right. You're right.
I'm really looking forward to this because, that if you're going to spend your life doing something, you should aim at nothing less than mastery, the way I look at it. Why aim at just being okay at something, even just expert? Why not go all the way to being absolutely the best you can be? Because the path of mastery is not about being perfect. It's about being committed, having those basics and being able to reinterpret those basics spontaneously to create an effect. And masters are always learning, they're always doing, and they're always sharing, always teaching or publishing. So this is in some ways, it's a natural next step. I never expected it. I really did not think about this. I knew I wanted a movie, but I didn't know I wanted to direct one. This is different.
It's super fun. And I was at UCLA last night where Michael Abels, the composer for, well, he does a lot of things. He's a Pulitzer Prize winner, but he's also famously known for composing the scores for Jordan Peele's movies, all of them, Get Out, Us, and Nope. And I thought I was going as kind of a networking thing, like, but it turned out I was literally just sitting there taking notes as a director, listening to him talk about his collaboration with another director, a director I greatly admire. And I was like, oh my God, I feel like this is just for me. And
Tell
having
me
that,
one thing that you thought that is different from what you would have thought a year ago.
well, as a newbie, I have to tell you, the amount of collaboration surprised me. I mean, I didn't ask him this, but it almost sounded like it's like scene by scene. You know what I mean? Like a Jordan would take musical elements from one place in the movie and move it somewhere else. And it's like I guess I just thought it was more like, hey, here's my movie, score it. But Jordan Peele is very, very hands-on. I don't know if this is true for all directors. We can talk to Josh about that too, because soundscape and music are such an important part of it. And I guess the other thing that I hadn't really thought about was the degree to which he felt like he had to learn how to be a storyteller himself. And he feels like a lot of musicians and composers are not taught storytelling. So this was his school to learn storytelling, which helps him in his orchestral compositions that have nothing to do with scoring.
You
It's
know,
it's it's
I've heard scores from really fine musicians and fine composers, and I had the very direct feeling that they were not storytellers. It was beautiful
mm,
music, but it wasn't in sync with what we were seeing on the screen. It wasn't, playing up these moments and down these moments, and it was great music. I listened to it as a jazz album or something else, but it was kind of surprising. It just doesn't really fit here. I can see what it is that he's saying there. Now, let me ask you a question.
yeah, and then we'll bring Josh on.
Is is there anything that you learned there about movies that you're going to adapt to your novel writing?
That's a tough one. That is a very, very tough one because for me, writing prose is where I live. It's not quite unconscious competence, but it comes so much more easily than any other kind of expression that I do. It's hard to say. We'll see. I think everything we do feeds into everything else, though. So I can guarantee you by the time we walk off that set and we've wrapped our shoot, there are a lot of elements that are going to help me as a screenwriter, especially. But
Well,
yeah, probably as a prose writer too.
let's learn, T. We have a
Yeah.
wonderful guest here today, so let's bring him in and let's pump him.
I mean, this
Let's
guy,
pump him dry.
just Werewolves Within is one of my favorite horror comedies. We've watched it more than once together, and
Yeah,
we will watch it again. And I'm so happy with myself that
I've seen it at least 3 times.
I had forgotten the twist the last time I saw it. So I was like, yes, she's so convinced. Oh, no spoilers. But Hard Eyes just opened about a week back. Valentine's Day. It's a horror comedy romance, and it's so well done. And we would love to welcome the director and his cat, Josh Ruben.
Here, here we are. Oh,
Is the cat going to be mic'd, or is this just a visual for the YouTube version?
what do you think? What do you think, Bull? He's just become the emotional support cat. We brought him in off the patio. He lived on the patio for 2 years, avoiding all sorts of threats, and then he hit the jackpot. And we were like, I guess we could bring him in. Maybe we'll cut off the old cojones and bring him inside. And he's bonded with our indoor cat, which is pretty wild. But we call him Bully
That
because there used to be another cat who we think was his brother that he bullied, and he's the sweetest ever. So welcome,
Can I
Bully
just say
Cat.
I'm so jealous? We have cats that we've had for like 10 years that don't sit on our laps. So I don't know what's going on there,
Yeah.
but you lucked out, dude, with that one.
Oh, I hit the jackpot too. I love it. It's good for the what do they call it? Psychosomatic such and such. Or just the purr in the lap. Yeah, it helps the
Yes,
nervous system. Yeah. Well,
it
thank you
really.
so much for having me. I love that maybe it doesn't necessarily have to be the subject we talk about, but I love that I happen to be guesting when y'all are on the precipice of your directorial debut. I'm so excited for you.
Well, I
Oh,
would
well,
love
you're
to
so
talk.
sweet.
I'd love for us to talk about your life as a director, your journey. And as you talk about these things, especially in connection with, leading up to doing Hard Eyes, let's say,
Hmm.
there will be countless opportunities for us to ask you specific questions. So please, tell us just a little bit about your directorial journey.
Yeah, was it always horror for you too? How did you come to horror?
It wasn't always horror. Horror was part of the gateway to just movies in general. I have an older sister, my older sister and my brother, who you wouldn't believe are related because their last name is Yamagata. So their dad does not look like my dad. But Rachel, my sister, who's also a singer-songwriter, she would invite me into her room. She had a TV in her room. She's like, Friday the 13th is playing on cable, so you're allowed to watch that. But also you have to watch Pretty Woman because I'm in charge of the TV and that's what I've rented. So I'd watch equal parts, rom-coms and horror stuff. So horror was always there. Freddy Krueger was like a cartoon character for me. I don't know what it is about my sensibility. And comedy was how I broke in and made money, I guess you could say. Commercials, college humor, now dropout that I still kind of keep a hand in the like internet comedy world. And so I always had a kind of edge, not necessarily an acerbic one, but kind of a genre edge that I wanted to apply to my comedic work. So my comedy at College Humor, my comedy and my internet stuff used to be, more genre leaning, more edgy, kind of like what Jordan used to do with Keegan. I You can tell there's kind of that darker sensibility. That's often where my sensibility would go. And so that was part of my journey. I, sort of left College Humor to pursue commercials. I had a directing partner for a bit. When we parted ways, I was left sort of going, what's my voice? I read Mark Duplass's book, Like Brothers, that was so inspiring. He talked about the $10 movie, the $1,000 movie, the $10,000 movie. And I decided I'm going to write to my resources and my strengths with what I have at my disposal and what actors I knew. And I made my first film. It went to Sundance, and the rest is
Whoa,
fairly
whoa, whoa.
history.
Your first film went to Sundance?
My first film went to Sundance, and the goal was just to make a film and to say we made a film, and that was on the bucket list. We had no idea it would go to any festivals. We just wanted to say we did it, and I still can't believe that happened.
What's your first film? What was it?
It's called Scare Me. That's with Aya Cash and Chris Red and Rebecca Drysdale. Just a low budget feature. Shutter IFC picked it up, and we were gonna have I believe like a 2 week run at Alamo Drafthouse or something before it went straight to Shutter. So you can check it out on Shutter. But it's a chamber piece where it's basically about two. Actually, you might like it. It's two competing writers, but it's really about gender competition. So it's about an emasculated male in the presence of a genius storytelling female who he is extremely emasculated by. But what it's the sort of genre gimmick of it is that they're telling campfire tales, but the tales never depart the campfire. So they're creating stories out of the space. It's sort of a space work composition sound designers movie. So yeah, so it's kind of an unusual film, and I think that's why Sundance responded to it. I'll never forget the moment Charlie Sextro from Sundance called and said, "You're playing midnight," and I couldn't believe it.
Oh, what a great moment. I'm gonna have to audience. Don't you have any reaction to such a great story? That is so
Whoa,
great.
thank you, everyone. That's very kind.
I mean, so you
So
knew out the gate. Okay. Go on, Steve.
now, I guess what I was wondering is, did you said that you did not envision that, that you envisioned finishing a film, that getting it to Sundance was serendipitous, that it was unexpected, it
Completely.
was delightful. Has your life been like that, where you focus on a goal and then what happens as a result of that is kind of surprising?
Well, no matter what, you never have a crystal ball. So, I grew up with a mom and a dad, but a mom who was especially, you are Jim Carrey, you are going to be the most famous actor, you are the most wonderful, and everything you do is gold. So every time I realized my shit stunk, pardon my French, I realized, oh my goodness, I'm not the golden boy. But the journey, part of the journey along the way, has always been, wow, who would have thought out of left field came this thing? But that thing that came out of left field was always because I pursued a specific passion with a friend or a member of my community. So, because I met best friends at summer camp some years ago, we said, let's just make funny videos because we just focused on that thing. Then here comes this entity to come give us basically a 9 to 5 working with our friends to make internet videos for 7 years. And that became my film school. You never would have expected it. So
No,
yes.
but if you've listened to this before, you've heard me mention, the magic formula, this thing where you do everything that you can do in a particular way, and what happens is that there are certain aspects of luck in life, of creative existence. Hollywood is not like a dog that comes when you call. Hollywood is more like a cat that comes and curls up in your lap when you're busy. So the trick is to get busy doing the right things that will attract the cat. So you said, let's finish a movie. In the process of doing that, you learned things. You built a network. You worked with your friends. You had fun. You did something, coming from your heart, but you also created something that was going to attract Hollywood. If you did this right, it was going to have an attractive effect. You don't count on it. You don't say, I'm going to do this and I'm going to get this particular executive to say hi, but something's going to happen. It's stochastic marketing of your dream, that you take actions in a particular way and the universe begins to say yes. But you have to act. You have to be totally engaged with your acting, and you can't even, the success you're looking for often comes out of your peripheral vision, not off the things here. So when we head towards this short film, we have no idea what's going to happen on the other side of it. All we know is if we do this with 100% integrity, with everything we've got, something will happen.
Yeah, something. And Josh, I don't want to cut you off in advance if you wanted to respond to that, but your sort of charmed start makes me think of the book I'm writing now, where a child actor has such a charmed start that it leads to great, great bitterness later in her career. And I'm just wondering if that charmed start was met by any immediate setbacks that were like, whoa, I thought this was going to be different, or have you been kind of steady as it goes?
That's a really amazing, it's a really astute point. I was already bitter at that point because I already knew that I lost my voice without quite understanding. I knew how. I'd lost my voice and knew that what I was doing, despite what dollars I was making, had in my pocket. I was working in commercials largely, which I'll do on occasion still if I'm available and it makes sense and whatever it is. And it can be a wonderful field, but the term for me was soul sucking. It was a total soul sucking endeavor. And I think the worst part of that chapter was that, I'd had a partner who I was directing many of them with. And what began as kind of a friendship turned into a business partnership, turned into sort of a competition. And by the end, when we realized it was unhealthy, my being left going out of all that, of all those years. And I started making all this art at my core, and now I'm here, whatever, making commercials for toilet paper. I'm so unfulfilled and I'm so bitter about what happened and so sort of caught up. And so there was only up to go from there. The joy of making a movie for no money, it didn't matter what we had. As I told my producer and cinematographer and creative partner in the whole process, Brendan Banks, who I'm very good friends with to this day, is, we will make this thing. We will do this no matter what, even if I'm holding the boom mic while I'm acting, while you're holding the camera, while I. So the goal was only to say, let's just put a notch in the belt and say we did it. But through my journey, I'd aforementioned, Brendan was there in the process of my journey along with me, making commercial stuff. This, just another community member I picked up along the way. So all we set our sights on was, let's make a thing, but we certainly knew we were passionate about it. And as first timers, and T, I mentioned this to you on the phone, we spoke briefly, was I didn't know, I'd never done a film before. I'd done some shorts. And when I talked to Jim Cummings, who'd done his first feature that he also acted in, I said, what's the advice? And he said, be the most prepped, be the nicest, and that will make you a good leader. You will succeed. And in my case, it was know your lines. be a good captain, be nice, because people are coming out of passion. So
That's great. That is great. I want to move to Hard Eyes because it's first of all it's Valentine's Day. I have so many. First of all, we love the movie. Thank you for inviting us to that premiere. It felt like a very intimate Hollywood horror crowd. Kayla Cooper, Megan was there, Don Mancini, who did Chucky, was there, and Brian Fuller, Hannibal was there. So that was your family. I know that the local community feels very
Yeah.
much like family, and
Yeah.
everybody loved it.
Yeah.
Everybody loved it.
That was flooring to me because, by the way, Chris Landon, my producer, my co-writer, Michael Kennedy, they're the ones who knew all those famous, incredible people who were there. I'd sort of fanned over them on social media. I couldn't believe that Akela and Don and Brian were there. I'd just been admiring all of them from afar, let alone the both of you who I'd never met in person, let alone. So it was truly getting in front of everyone when I did get kind of choked up saying this is the most intimidating screening this will ever be. It truly was, because I was looking out going, holy shit, you did this, you did that, you two were here. It never kind of gets old. Barbara Crampton, whatever. So yeah, I'm still so grateful, counting every blessing.
Yeah, one of the
That
things that I think that we can touch on right there is the need for community. That one of the most precious gifts or rewards for doing good work is you begin to gather a circle of people who look at your work and say, "Oh, you feel about this the way I do. You care about this the way I do. This is really part of you. You have that special sort of insanity that I have." And you start gathering together like people who like the same comic book or stamp collecting, other things, only you're in the creative space. And that circle becomes your most trusted first impression of your work. Take a look at this. What do you think? They know that if they lie to you about it, they're taking food out of your kids' mouths, that they're keeping you from being able to grow. They're not going to jolly you along. If the right circle of people, to earn your way into a circle of people who have that sort of commitment and honesty and vision, there's nothing that's been more precious to me in my career than making friends and feeling like I could get this person on the phone and ask them X, Y, and Z. I can ask Brian Fuller, could you jump on a Zoom with me for 15 minutes just so I can talk about this? I don't want to take up a lot of his time. We used to spend a lot more time together during the pandemic because every week we would do video golf together. And now
virtual
he's
mini golf. Yes.
virtual mini golf. And now he's making his movie, he's doing this, but we love each other. And that idea that you can have real friendships with people that you only see when you come together for something happening is unusual, and it's sort of wonderful. And how has your life changed as you moved into the field and started making friends with people, other journeyers on that path? What happened when you started meeting them? How did you react?
I mean, I'm starstruck every week. That initial moment of, realizing, holy crap, I'd done something that attracted, as subjective as Blumhouse or Barbara, for example, Crampton following me on Twitter when I used to be a part of it, RIP. I mean, it blew me away. The trick I've learned is that we're all just people, everybody, no one's perfect, and you have to, along the way, recognize your fans. So the example, the running list that, I guess you could say I have, or the people who come out of the woodwork, Kumail Nanjiani, for example, who reaches out to me and goes, "Hey, whenever the right thing is there, I'm there for you." Like Mason, Olivia, and Gigi for right now, for getting into Hard Eyes territory. This cast, really all members of my acting community that I've been able to act with or direct, thank God, we all get along. Those are the people that along the way mean the most to me, just insofar as I know that I could trust a Harvey Guillen or a Kumail or a Sam Richardson to just come do something weird, and that they understand that we have the shorthand, just like it was in the theater troupe days. And if you find that that fan of yours that kind of gets it and is down to kind of jump in and not judge you or kind of undercut you. We've all, the big life lesson for me, I was talking about, a former partnership I had, just like anybody would with friendships that no longer serve you, relationships that no longer serve you. That's the beautiful part of aging and kind of moving forward is, yes, it's cool to be followed by the Barbers and the Blumhouses, but what's really cool is weeding out all the noise, including people who make a noise, who don't support you and don't love you unconditionally, anything short of unconditionally, and want to just support and want to truly just kind of give. And then the ultimate self-actualization is, can we all play together? Just like I got to do with Hard Eyes,
That
When
is,
I heard about George Lucas and Steven Spielberg sitting on the beach in Maui talking about making movies together, and they came up with Raiders of the Lost Ark. And I thought to myself, what must it be like to be operating at that level and find a playmate? That anyway, Tananarive, you were about to go. You were about to say something.
well, I want to say it with Hard Eyes because I love it so much, and I really want everyone who listens to this podcast to go see it literally today. It is Valentine's Day. We feel so lucky to have you on Valentine's Day, which is so ironic. It is what I love about it, and what everybody I was talking to in a huddle, Don Mancini and Brian, all loved about it, is that it brings the horror and it brings the heart, right? And the funny. Like Steve knows, like we pick a movie to watch every night, and often he'll suggest a horror comedy. I'm like, not my favorite category. But your horror comedies I will not miss. So you have figured something out about how to make that work. That combination of when
All
it's
right.
scary, it's all the way scary. When it's funny, it's all the way funny. And then you add a love story on top of that. How do you balance all those things, Josh?
Yeah, it begins. Thank you so much for saying that. It's an immense compliment coming from you. I mean, honestly, it begins and ends with the cast. If you don't have your your sort of Meg Ryan and Tom Hanks, if you don't have your Mason Gooding and your Olivia Holt, if you don't have your Sonny and Cher, whatever the duo is, you don't have that electricity, that chemistry, the movie doesn't work. And this was a total gamble because these two exemplary human beings didn't have the opportunity to do a chemistry reading. But what I did do, like I do with on all my movies, and I think this is why all my casts are exemplary human beings, is I do background checks to ask, are they exemplary human beings? We're all leaving home, we're all traveling across the world, we're all going in to the trenches in the winter, wherever we're going. I need to make sure no one's going to have a meltdown about LaCroix or whatever it is. Are they going to be down? And part of why I think we all get down together, and you should do this too. This is one of my favorite things to do when you cast, no matter what the age is of the actors to come aboard for your short and all the films you're going to make, is, hey, be real with me, just you and me. How do you like to be talked to? How do you like to be directed? If you were to walk away from this situation successfully, if this was like the most successful situation ever, the most successful shoot, what would that entail? What would it take for this to be the best situation? What would be the worst situation? What could be the worst thing to happen? And when you just level with actors, no matter what level, even a Jordan's level, I'm sure, hey, what's just tell me with what, be real with me. What would be the worst case scenario? They will level with you. They love that. And Jordana Brewster just said it in front of a huge audience at Beyond Fest when we had our premiere. She said no directors ever asked that question. And that's mind-boggling to me because it's such a sensitive, vulnerable thing. So I take the gnarly actor reputation with a grain of salt, because it is a gnarly thing to be vulnerable in front of a crew of 5 or 50.
I love the advice. I want to start taking notes while we're talking to you.
Yeah, I took that note. I got it.
So, and Mason Gooding, they're both awesome. Mason Gooding, of course, caught my eye because he's gorgeous. He's Cuba Gooding's son. He's so, like, I almost want to ask, is he really as sweet as he seems in the movie? I know he's acting, but he just comes across as such a sweetheart. So you really hit the jackpot there, it looks like. At least
He
he can
is on
act it.
a Oh my goodness, yeah. He is on a life journey to be as good of a human being as he can. That's just part of his journey. He's very open about it. He's very committed to it. I mean, he got off the plane and was, first you go, this dude looks the way he does, and he's slinging compliments, and he's giving people flowers, and he's gifting, and he says, but he is extremely grounded, and he doesn't like vapid bullshit. He really just, the more grounded, the more connected, the more real you are, the better. And Liv is the consummate professional. And so when I just talked to them separately and knew that they were both exemplary, and Mason, one of the people I asked about him as a person was Radio Silence, and Tyler and Matt said, you won't believe the adjectives. You'll think that we're lying if the way that, as effusive as we'll be. And the same was said about Olivia. So we took the gamble, but they're both incredible humans, and that's why it works.
It really
I
comes
would,
across. Go on,
I'd
honey.
love to kind of dig in a little bit and ask, what do you feel? What is the job of a director that most people don't realize?
Well, the most recent lesson I've learned, or that's at least become clear to me, is that you are one of hundreds to make a movie possible, or one of tens, that you're just a piece of the puzzle. But one of the most important things you can do as a director is take all the feedback, because as you should share your piece with the world, or at least with your close circle. You should share your cut with your close circle. Take feedback on your short, on your film, and learn how to weed out what is not useful and what you respond to, and apply what you are responding to make it better. So part of it is so much, and that's on set. You do the same thing too. An actor's going to throw quite a bit at you. You're going to say, okay, cool, now let me guide and sculpt. And that is truly what you do, down to the edit, down through to the edit. The editor's going to say, I tried this big giallo like rock and roll montage such and such for the last few minutes of the movie. And you say, all right, what really works is the animation idea or the special effects that you thought of, but the music doesn't quite work. So while the rock and roll part doesn't work, the animation part works, and the way that you've, whatever, amped up the pacing, you're this feedback, that feedback, weeding it out and culling.
One of
There's a
the
way to talk to people too. That Michael Abels talked about how Jordan Peele has
Absolutely.
this gift for, even when he's like criticizing something and saying he doesn't like it, it comes out sounding like a compliment. I wish I could remember the example he gave me, but the point was, it's like he sees you, he sees your value.
Yes,
How about
yes,
we try this? You know?
yes. That's
I
what I aspire to be, that in every degree, from Mark Duplass and Jordan as human beings, but also as creators, because I do call it playing jazz. Stephen, you brought up, the jazz of it all before, at least in that phrasing. It has to be that. It's got to be a fluid thing. That can be the scariest thing on its face. But when you're on set, you'll realize it. Just kind of stay loose, in the kind of Bruce Lee of it all, to go, oh man, okay, look, we're losing light, and this actor's having a hard time with this blocking, and we had these three shots in mind to make it happen, but there is something that our DP is suggesting where we can combine two of those three shots,
Yeah.
and I think that's going to make it better.
Well, look, man, what you just said triggered something that when we were on the set of our first short,
Which we
Danger
didn't
Work,
direct, we wrote it, but we didn't
we
direct.
wrote it and we produced it. But we're on the set and it's late and our crew is about to revolt, and
They were
everybody's
mad.
exhausted. And Tananarive came up with a spontaneous suggestion that saved us hours of time and saved the entire shoot. And that was the moment, watching her do that when she was exhausted, that I said, we could make a movie, because
Mm,
my baby has that kind of creativity.
mm,
She's got that. The question I wanted to ask you was, there are a couple of extremes that I can think of. Alfred Hitchcock micromanaged his actors. You look here, you move this, you do this, and then you go home. Clint Eastwood doesn't direct actors at all. He hires the right actors and then he directs the movie, and he trusts the actors to do their thing. I guess I wanted to ask you, where are you on that range?
I am very visual, and there's something that Mason said. We were having dinner the other night, and he said something very sweet, and I'm gonna butcher the phrasing, but it was something about how they felt that my craft, or the visual craft, supported the emotionality of the scene. And when I get caught up thinking about when I get too far from my time on set and I start to fatigue, I start to forget, quote unquote, how to do it. I realize going into it with a strong kind of vision, inevitably every time I go in with that strong vision, the beat always speaks for itself, and within the confines of the craft of the shot, the actors can do quote unquote almost anything. So what Clint Eastwood does do, because I think there was an interview, or might have been Dreama Walker, who's a friend of mine who was in Gran Torino. I've asked actors who've worked with him and asked, what does he do? And he goes, well, let me just take a look at just tell me what you think of this. What if you walked in and you sat on the couch, and then I was kind of thinking the door could open, you come in, you go to the fridge, and then you sit down on the couch and join this character. And they'll just say, let's give it a try, and extremely rarely will people push back. Inevitably, everybody just wants to trust you. They don't want to direct when they come in. Some of the older actors, especially the older males, will test. I've had that with a few, but you still can enforce that by saying, well, what might be better? Tell me what you're thinking. This is what I'm thinking. Inevitably, you always are going to have your plan. You just open to the suggestion and kind of stay fluid, because sometimes the middle ground makes for it being better. You never want to be pushed over. There is a kind of firmness to it that you can imbue. And by nature of that initial conversation, hey, just you and me, there's no audience around. How do you like to be talked to? What's the worst case scenario? What's the best case scenario? How do you like to be directed? And then you'll remember and you'll catalog that for all 5, 10, 15, 30 your cast members.
Wow,
great.
see all of this. It's like
That's great.
this is like the master class. We take the master class courses, but this is the master class. I want to ask you about something near and dear to my heart, because I noticed, obviously, after Werewolves Within, Sam Richardson, Black dude, lead, very rare in mainstream horror for there to be a Black lead, even today. And then when we spoke on the phone, you talked about how Mason Gooding was going to be the co-lead in this. I was like, hold on a second. Another Black co-lead? What's going on, Josh? And it turns out that's not accidental. And I would love to hear your philosophy of casting in an inclusive way, because it's not common, and I want to hear why. Why are you doing it?
There's a lot of people who look like me in positions of power, and I'm a little exhausted by it. I'm so lucky to be in the position that I'm in, and nothing gives me more joy than giving someone the opportunity to play something they have not had the opportunity to play. It comes just as much from the responsibility I have as another of the 15s of thousands, 20s of thousands cis white dudes in positions of power. So if I'm going to be in that position of power, I'm one of the few, like Mark Duplass, I believe, is one who says, we are going to, because I am who I am, we are going to bring people aboard who are not like me. Mike Flanagan is another one who does that. I'm going to bring someone aboard who doesn't, or at least give the opportunity to people to, to play parts they haven't before. And what inevitably happens is that film will have a long life. And I don't know, it brings me just as much joy. It's no different, I think, as Chris Nolan farming actors who have been out of work for ages and ages, or Quentin Tarantino giving opportunities to actors who, Hollywood may have tossed in the trash. Said, no, we're never going to work with Michael Madsen again, or Daryl Hannah. For me, it's a responsibility. Jasmine Savoy Brown, like I want a Black woman protagonist in horror. I want more of them. I can only think of Jada when I think of the Final Girls. So and that's Ernie Dickerson and
Demon Knight. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So
I think it's fantastic. Do you ever get pushback? I'm curious about that.
I've gotten a little, I have to say, on Hard Eyes, it was no question. The studio, The studio kind of, if you look at their body of work, they do kind of operate pretty diverse, especially in like the Scream franchise and some of their prior. It was never a question. I got it a little bit just as kind of a, what do you think of these folks? What do you think of these folks? Not instead, but also, what do you think of these folks? It doesn't have anything to do with anything nefarious. It's about quote unquote, or they phrase it as value, but this actor has done X blockbuster. So at that point, if Sam, who hadn't led a blockbuster before, that becomes the argument. Yeah, but you know what? This is an ensemble piece. And that was part of my pitch from the get-go. Werewolves specifically is about being outsiders. And I grew up in a predominantly white town, watching it gradually get gentrified from us country folk, seeing city folk move in. And that just was everything thematically.
If you talk to people and you ask them what percentage of human beings do you think are strongly tribal, tribal enough to be, considered racist in that sense? Most people will say between 10 and 40% of people that they believe are highly tribal. But then if you ask them, what are they? Because fewer than 5% will admit it. To me, what happens in meetings in Hollywood and other places is that if there are more than 3 or 4 people in the room, one of them has a problem. They will not say it. They will look for another way to say no. They will say, well, this person hasn't done this before. The audience would think it's never me. It's never what I want. It's what the audience wants.
The one time the executive, and I won't name the company, was like, do the characters have to be black? It was totally deflecting to, oh yeah, oh yes, for my book, The Good House, which is a very blackety black book. He's deflecting to, it's not me, you understand. He's English, and I'm not going to do his accent. It's not me, but the overseas buyers. And in my research,
Right.
I've learned that used to be the Southern markets. They used to say that about, like, oh, well, that won't play in the Southern markets. Now it's the world markets. It's like, well, if it's the
Yes.
world markets, how come there are no Asian leads either? What's going on? What are you talking about?
That's right. So we had to change the ancient one in Doctor Strange to a white woman because China would have objected if it was about, Tibet. Well, why didn't you make the character Chinese? Well, we can't do that either. That's a cliche. Have you seen Chinese movies? They love images of the elder wizard, martial art. Now, the problem that I see is that human beings are tribal. We prefer what we see in the mirror, but we also won't be honest about it. So what's necessary, it's like, the one way I kind of put it is that evolution requires white light, that white light moving from one level to the next. And that when that white light strikes the prism of human consciousness, it splits into a spectrum. If you remove one of the colors from the spectrum, you can't get back to the white light. We're no longer representing humanity as it is. We're looking at people's fears about humanity. We're looking to their dreams, their preferences, their prejudices. And ultimately, it isn't even good for them, but under pressure, people become more tribal. I think we just saw that in the most recent election. So when I meet filmmakers who, for reasons of aesthetics, that sense of, I have a feeling that we should shift this. To me, that's a person who is looking at what does it take for the human race to evolve? What does it take for us to move forward to the next stage in our development? And even if you've never looked at it directly, you can feel that the absence of women in roles of power, of gay people or trans people or black people or whatever, that we're not representing humanity. And without looking at the human race as it is, we can't make plans for the future or understand the past. So you don't have to look directly at this. I think that there are people who naturally seek the balance, and there are people who have a slight aversive feeling to it. And they're both human beings, and we need to love them both and understand that everyone has fears that operate in different ways. But I would like to say that I have a special appreciation for people who do have that sense. I don't blame the others for not having it, but I do like to honor the people that do. So I'd like to say thank you, Josh. It makes a difference. It matters.
I mean, absolutely. I'm just going to put a little applause on that one because, I know you're not looking for it. I'm going to make it short because I don't want to make you blush. But listen, part of this podcast and the bones of this podcast is helping artists learn how to thrive during times of chaos, which can be daily life, it can be your relationships, it can be your kids. But recently, whether it's because of the election or here in Southern California because of wildfires, artists have been dealing with a lot more than usual, including you. And you lost
Mm,
your house in the recent wildfires, which has to have been a surreal experience, which was almost immediately followed by the release of this movie. That's a lot of
that's right.
whiplashing. How have you been coping with the good, the bad, and the ugly?
Well, my wife and I, our first reaction to it was, let's get out. Let's just get out. We weren't in the house. I mean, get out of Dodge because of the air really freaked us out, as I'm sure you felt it too. We're pretty much wherever you are in a 100-mile radius, you're feeling a little bit of something. That smoke was dreadful.
Mm.
Once we got out and we quote unquote got over that initial shock, that was when we started to get hit by that trauma exhaustion. And it was just the way to cope was honestly to just be with each other. And we sort of realized we were in some tiny, Airbnb in the desert with the two cats and each other, that wow, home really could be anywhere if it's with the four of us, the the two cats and each other. That yeah, it's horrible to lose your things, but as long as we have each other, it's like thank God we didn't lose each other. Our situation is no less traumatic, I guess I could say, only because, we didn't rush out of a house and only have the clothes on our backs. We lost a predominantly empty house we had yet to build memories in. So
Oh,
we
okay,
had
good.
just closed on it. We were weeks away from moving in fully. The only
Uh,
things I had moved into that house was everything from my office. So my Werewolves Within book that the whole cast and crew signed. I lost
oh,
all my comic books from childhood and DVDs and thank you cards and hard drives. We have most of our stuff and the rental we'd yet to leave. And so we were, a fairly newly married couple going, finally, like the work life will be able to match the the home life. We come home after all our red carpets to our tiny condo, and we're so grateful for it. And we're trying to just breathe through anger. That's the biggest thing. And
mm,
the most unusual piece of it, not terribly unusual to a therapist, is through all of that, not being able to kind of quote unquote get it up creatively in the few moments we felt like we needed to quote unquote be creative. It was impossible. And our therapist was like, yeah, obviously, that's trauma. It's a manifestation of it. It's not quite easy to relax into creating something or doing
Under
even your
threat.
one sentence a day under threat
Yeah.
completely. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, the underneath the anger to me is fear. We never
Mm.
get angry about things we want to happen. Fear being a strong aversive response, something that we're trying to, So if you deal with the underlying fear that you could lose everything, that the world really is a random place, that you could have lost your wife, you could have lost your kitties,
Mhm.
mm,
you could have lost your own life. These are real things. And until you look directly at that stuff, I think if you look directly at that stuff, you can then put it into your art. You can then put it into your
Mhm.
work. You can find ways to express the real emotions. But I think a lot of people don't deal with the real emotions. So their art will always be clever, but never true. The way I thought is that you can
Mhm.
run out of clever, but you can never run out of the truth. All you have to
Mhm.
do is keep asking yourself, what are the real emotions? And this is hard. Tananarive is so good at this. I hate her. Everything that she does stems from that deep well of emotion. I start with thought and structure and then try to fill it with emotions, but her
mm,
way is more organic. It's more like growing a plant. Mine is more like building a building. The living art is the most powerful, I think. It's the most sophisticated.
Mhm.
I think it has a touch of magic. So your loss, what you're going through right now, I'm going to bet that your next movie or the movie after that is going to contain things that happened to you that you thought and you felt and you experienced now. That your unconscious
Mhm.
mind is looking for ways to process all of this, and it's going to come out in your work.
Oh, completely. That's the key to it, right? Right, what you know.
even if what
Right,
completely
what you really
sucks.
feel.
But and I
Mm-hmm.
hope it makes it sweeter because I follow you on Blue Sky, which is a great little community. If you're not already there, come
Mm.
join us. All of the fans, people that you admire who are chiming in to tell you how much they love the movie, that has
Mm.
to feel, does it feel more surreal, or does it kind of lift you out of the anger a bit?
This is an interesting subject. I found myself absorbed into the drug of the endorphin buzz, and you could say riding the high of, you get this essentially when your movie comes out, you have one really especially intense week, sometimes 2 weeks for a bigger film. And I found myself being like actively filling myself with the junk food of and getting lost in the junk food of the notifications and the endorphin buzz of that, but really feeling anything when friends and family would reach out. My aunt and uncle took an unpremium, I was going to say an ugly selfie, but I'm not saying they're ugly. I'm just saying that, like, a very unsparkly selfie in front of a poster of Hard Eyes in West Orange, New Jersey, or friends on their way to Union Square, or friends we have in New York, taking a selfie video of the group of them walking over, hugging Jay Wadley, my composer, who used to do me favors upon favors for short films and college humor stuff years and years ago that I've been trying to get aboard to do a project. And now he finally comes aboard a project, and it happens to be the biggest budget I've ever worked with. He gets to really showcase, he gets to really play. That's the stuff that's really filled me up. So well, it's so incredible, especially in person. You never feel it more than Don Mancini looking you in the eye and telling you did a great job, or Jennifer Tilly, or either of you. That's what fills me up. But I do think it's valuable too. And I did this after I found out I got into Sundance. When your phone's blowing up, don't get lost in the drug of that. Like, that's the moment to take a walk and to soak it all in and kind of, look around and breathe in the air and look at the trees and take in the gratitude of it all, acknowledge it, as opposed to kind of getting
This
lost in the
is,
junk food.
we were
Perfect
going to
segue.
ask you about your um, coping mechanisms for stress, but the
Mm.
truth is, I think that if you just listen to what he just said,
That's it
Mm.
right there.
it's in associations, it's in taking a walk, it's in understanding the real values of life, that you lost these things, but the people, the living
Mm.
thing you care about are still left. The little kitty that just jumped up
Yeah,
into your
Gratitude.
the
lap saying,
cats, yeah.
thank you for saving me, Daddy."
I just love you say,
Having
finally a
clarity of
grateful cat.
values, of what's
Mm.
important, I think is so critical. And I think that this is what's not taught to writers. Any MFA program can give you the structures and the practice, but how do you be that bitch? How do you be the person who can
Mm.
get up every day, day after day, and do this? How do you protect your emotions? Can
Writers
you
and
tell us
artists.
one thing that you do to protect your marriage, to protect your relationship? Because there's a lot going on in the world. What do you do to
Oh,
stay connected?
easy, easy. Get into your bodies. Do it together. Get into your bodies together. So take the walk together. Put the phone in the pocket. Nothing is better than, but even if, especially if things are getting tense, or you're in an argument, or you're getting in your head, or, why isn't this dishwashed, or whatever it is. Anything you can do, the quicker you can do it, to take the walk together and get in your bodies as a duo is great. Last night, we went to a screening of The Monkey, which was a lot of fun. And,
Ooh,
we were
can't wait
seeing
to
all
see
these,
that.
oh my goodness, it's wild. And we had friends who were there, and everybody's going, "You come to the after party, you come to the after parties." Oh, I haven't gotten a lot of sleep, and I'm just coming off of the high of Hard Eyes, and this cat's waking me up, whatever, 6 o'clock every morning. Gotta lock him out of the bedroom, whatever it is. And so we end up going home, and we're kind of going back and forth. Man, I wish we went, and we should have gone, and you only live once, and sleep where you're dead. And we got home, and Lauren was just like, "What if we just dance?" And we turned on LCD sound system, and we blasted it, and our neighbor doesn't mind the noise because, we're tight. And we just like kind of like danced to two songs in the dark, and it was great. And we
Oh,
felt great. And then we watched
Fantastic.
Severance, that's how
perfect.
you
Just
protect it.
absolutely
Yes,
could not agree more. Tananarive and I,
absolutely.
we like to do yoga. We like to do yoga and kettlebells together. And it's just like, I get to look at her and I think we're connecting on an animal level because
Yeah.
we're a hunting pair. And
Yeah.
look at this magnificent female animal. I want to be my very best. I want to appeal to her. I want to touch
Wow.
her hind brain,
Yeah.
and everything
Yeah.
else. That
Yeah.
understanding kind of the basic thing that the art rests upon. It rests upon a foundation that you're engaged with life. You're not
Mm.
separate from it. Otherwise, you have nothing to offer. I've often said that writing is less important than garbage collection because you can have writers can go out on strike and people will barely notice it. But if the garbage
Mm.
collectors go out on strikes, you got to handle that in 6 weeks because that's a gestation period for rats. So
Mm.
your art has to provide value to the people doing the real work of the world, the
Mm.
work that keeps people healthy, the work that keeps society going. That we have an incredible privilege to be able to spend our time dreaming and selling those dreams. And I think it's critical that we must never forget the people who are asking us, dream a dream that allows me to step out of my life or contextualizes my life or gives me hope or allows me to drain my, if you're not doing something for them, what are you doing? That's just kind of the way I look at it. You have
Yeah.
to stay
Beautiful stuff.
connected.
This is great,
Amen.
Josh. You have
You know,
been an amazing guest. I know you're very active on social media, so people can find you on Instagram, Blue Sky, anywhere else, or
That's it. I tried to weed it out.
I totally understand.
well, the
It's
other thing I
hard.
wanted to say to Tananarive is that what we're doing on our life writing site and what we do with our different classes is try to give people not just the structure of writing, but the emotional, the ability to clarify your emotions and to strengthen yourself so that you can rigorously go for year after year after year, making incremental change, getting slapped back down, but get up, cry, dust off your wounds, and get back out there again. We're doing life writing professional, which is going to be it's the beginning of a new phase in our teaching, and the doorway to that is our science fiction Afrofuturism class that you can learn at www.writerwebinar.com. And we would love for you to be a part of this. If the kinds of questions that we've been asking, if the kinds of potential solutions that we've been suggesting for producing the very best work of your life and monetizing it, being able to pay your bills with it, if you like what you hear here, then you're going to love what we've got in that class. And
Yeah, it's
go ahead.
science fiction and writing Afrofuturism. And also, I'll add that we have that's on demand, but we have two upcoming live courses later this year, screenwriting and horror. If you purchase any of our 2025 courses, you get 2 free months in our upcoming Life Writing Pro workshop, which we've never done before. And that starts in March. So you have time to work on your story before it gets started. Check it out, like Steve said, at www.writerwebinar.com. And thank you so much for our guest, Josh Ruben. Go see Hard Eyes. Go see Hard Eyes. Support horror, people. And while you're supporting horror, go out and make yourself the hero or heroine in your own story.
The hero in the adventure of your lifetime.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.